Hey guys, it's Minutia Minute. Got a very special video coming at you today. Got the projector booted up, and I am gonna see if I can tackle this 4-hour Zack Snyder epic, Justice League. Not gonna lie, guys, I absolutely hated the Justice League movie. I hated Man of Steel. I came to terms with Batman v Superman. It's not really how I see those characters at all. But at the same time, if you think of it as kind of an Elseworlds, I'm willing to accept the vision. And the biggest disappointment of Justice League was we didn't really get to see how everything finished. Like, good or bad, I wanted to see the full vision and get to the end. We're finally here. I'm going to give you guys some of my thoughts. My understanding is there's an intermission, and I'll give you some preliminary thoughts then. And then at the end of the movie, when the credits hit, I'll give you my thoughts again. Okay, so slight correction. This does not have an intermission. Instead, as you can see on the bar here, it's got chapters. So I just finished part one. It looks like there's 5 or 6 parts, whatever. The intermission is in theaters, actually. Let me give you just a few really quick first impressions here. First thing I'll say is, there's no true quote unquote Snyder cut in terms of like the movie that is exactly what he wanted to make when he had Batman vs. Superman in mind, because he was changing it on the fly. Like, there were a ton of reports that there was a lot of studio interference. I will say that so far it has a unified tone. Whatever changes that he made on the fly don't seem to be, making the movie feel disjointed at all. And so far it seems to be the film's benefit, because this definitely has some actual superheroics in it for the first time. We have superheroes acting like superheroes. I don't think he really changed the tone. If it's still that Zack Snyder style, that Zack Snyder tone, just not that like dour Watchmen kind of vibe that Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman had. So, a couple cool things happened so far. We got a quick guest cameo by Mark McClure, who was Jimmy Olsen in the '78 Superman movie. That was kind of fun. And then the majority of what really kicked butt in this first section is all the stuff on Themyscira. So obviously that's in the original version of Justice League. This is a much expanded version. It's amazing just how much like production value is in this, that it's not a matter of like, there's no reason to cut it. Like, you have a ton of like totally ripped Themyscirans, like fighting Steppenwolf, who looks amazing, by the way, in the new suit. I really like Zack Snyder's sort of dark side designs with the clicky metal pieces. That's really cool. But anyway, like, so much production value in just that sequence alone. No reason to really cut it other than just to turn what was, a 15-minute sequence into a 5-minute sequence, whatever it was in the actual theatrical version. So that was really, really cool to see. My blood was pumping. It was really cool. Another thing I'll say in favor of this movie is that I'm a film fan. Like, I love watching movies every era. I love old movies, and I recently was on a Douglas Fairbanks kick, which, old silent movies. I watched Zorro, The Son of Zorro, a couple others. The Is it the Crimson Pirate? I can't remember the pirate one. And the thing that struck me about those movies is that action and stunts and spectacle really benefits from the full frame ratio, like the 4:3 that used to be on old television sets. And film went to widescreen to compete with TV. Now TVs are widescreen, and it's left the door open to go back to what may be a better format. I feel like widescreen is really suited for drama. But when you're really getting into like that spectacle, having that verticality is really, really cool. That's something that I've talked with friends about for the last few years. And then Mission Impossible Fallout came out, and there's a whole bunch of that movie that's filmed with the taller aspect ratio because it was shot for IMAX, and it really got me thinking that it'd be interesting to see a return to that. And so the fact that Zack Snyder put this film in 4:3 as opposed to 16:9 was really cool to see, and it actually makes me excited to go back and check out the new version of Batman v Superman that's in the same ratio. Anyway, that's my thoughts for now. On to part two. Okay, just finished part two, heading into part three. What struck me about part two really was the amount of world building going on here. It takes a lot to kind of get back in that headspace. I didn't want to go back and rewatch everything, so I just hopped straight into this one. And it's, this is now a movie that's had sequels in the sense of like you had the Aquaman and other titles that came after it, and it's hard to remember where all these different characters are and what happened in those movies because this is setting up stuff that's now already happened, which is a little bit weird and confusing. Big climax of part two is we get to finally see Darkseid. Basically, Wonder Woman is explaining to Batman who Darkseid is, where he comes from, and she tells this flashback of how Darkseid came to Earth, attempted to use the three mother boxes to create the Unity, and basically, turn everyone into the Borg. And he was held back. So it's interesting because now we're about a quarter of the way into the story, a little more, and we've now seen Darkseid pretty roundly defeated, which makes Darkseid not feel like as big of a threat. Like right now, Steppenwolf almost feels like more of a threat than Darkseid. Speaking of Steppenwolf, we get a fair amount of him in this, and the realization of his character and his wanting to be brought back into the fold. With Darkseid is super cool. Really, really well done. Really liking Steppenwolf's character. Also in the flashback, we get to see a pretty extensive amount of the Green Lantern that's kind of alluded to in the theatrical cut. We get to see him fighting. We get to see him killed. Darkseid goes for his ring, but is held back, and the ring zips off to select another Green Lantern to replace him. Pretty cool stuff. So we'll just have to see. Gonna get started on part three here. And this is why I am a physical media junkie right here. All right, just finished up part three and gonna go right into part four here. Part three is all about establishing Cyborg and the Flash. They did not get very much character development, really had no real sense where they came from other than those like YouTube videos that Lex Luthor had saved on his computer. They really spend the time in this version of Justice League fleshing them out, which is great. You get a whole sense of what Flash's backstory is, why that's relevant, what his character is all about. Same thing with Victor Stone. I'm not a huge fan of Ezra Miller's portrayal of the Flash, mainly just because I find his humor just not really that funny. Obviously, that's pretty subjective, but at least we get a really good sense of his character getting rounded out in this version. So I think his character has improved quite a bit from the theatrical version. Victor Stone, I'm finding, still is a little bit one note. He's just very serious and depressed, and there's just not a lot of dynamism to his character right now. However, I mean, that actor looks exactly like Victor Stone. I think it would just be nice um, to see him play off some other characters. I'll have a better idea once he's really spent some time with Wonder Woman, Batman, Flash, to see if he kind of grows into his own or if he's just still just kind of flat and two-dimensional. Anyway, I'm going to hop right into part four, about halfway through the movie. All right, guys, it's starting to heat up. So I'm going to go into part five here in just a second. In part four, we got the underground tunnel fight that was in the movie originally. Uh, the thing about Zack Snyder is I really don't care for his action because a lot of times, like, you'll have a shot of someone saying something, and then all of a sudden it's like a completely different movie with like all these effects and things going on, and then cut to some random guy on a set saying something, and it just doesn't feel very natural. all the Zack Snyder cuts in the world can't really fix that problem. It's just part of the nature of his movies and a lot of movies these days. So a little bit underwhelming just because Zack Snyder's action just doesn't do a ton for me. That said, as we get towards the end of the part, we start introducing the idea of bringing Superman back, where we leave off, about to go into part five, which got my blood pumping. So I'm just going to keep going and I'll check back in a bit. All right, guys, on to part six. Superman's back. He just took Lois Lane to the Kent family farm. And I gotta be honest, I'm enjoying this. So, one of the things about the Justice League, the original version, was, um, Superman comes back, and there's just really no stakes for it. Like they go dig him up, which happens in this too, by the way. I wasn't sure if that was going to carry through. In the original version, they kill him, they bring him back, and there's not really anything else to it. In this version, there's a lot more, like you're questioning whether it was the right idea to bring him back. Much more so because as they're bringing him back, like you get the nightmare vision, which you saw in Batman v Superman, and they really truly have to weigh their options because if they awaken the mother box, Steppenwolf will find it and they'll accelerate the timetable, but they can't just keep running around with this box hoping they'll never find it because that's just, as Batman says, losing slower. So this is doing a really good job kind of setting the stakes, and I'm excited to see how it wraps up. There are two more parts after this, or part six and part seven, it looks like. I am going to just finish the movie out, and I will chat with you guys again over the credits. All right, folks, all done. I guess I'll just give you some quick first impressions. Um, Overall, I gotta say I like this. It was not bad. It's one of those things where, I think about like what is the definitive version of the Flash, Cyborg, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. This is not the movie I think of, right? Um, and towards the end, like there's some kind of slightly eye-rolling stuff that happens in the Nightmare universe that just feels like Zack Snyder in his, my movie is so dark and edgy. Can you believe how dark and edgy my Batman movie could possibly be? Like that mentality, that definitely can hold him back if he's not being careful. That said, though, you have to take a movie on its own terms, right? Like I try to think about that anytime I approach a piece of work is, does it work in the context of itself, and not necessarily what I'm bringing into it. And I thought that this movie really worked, actually. I would say my number one complaint would be the action sequences continue to be just garbled mess. We had that problem at the end of Wonder Woman. We had that problem in Man of Steel at the end, in Batman v Superman at the end, where it's just sort of nondescript ghost town area that is basically just a giant playground where you can just literally do anything, and like the choreography doesn't matter, the sense of place doesn't matter because it's just kind of a big CGI field. Just not my favorite thing, but it's also not unique to Zack Snyder, right? Favorite thing about this movie, so I would say like one scene in particular jumped out at me, which was there's a great moment with Alfred and Wonder Woman in the Batcave where she's making herself some tea. I really, really dug that moment. Like, I don't know, it's just like a great little character moment. I have to say that, the thing about Zack Snyder a lot of times is it's like you can't substitute style for characterization. A lot of times, like you're just expected to care about things because he puts, a certain tone in the melody of the soundtrack, or it's in slow motion, so you should care because it's a really pretty composed shot, right? I think that one of the things that's great about this movie is he takes the time to really decompress his story and give you the background of all these characters, give you a reason to care about them, which really allows you to be more invested. And even though it kind of devolves into gobbledygook towards the end with the action, you still are emotionally grounded in it, which was not true in the original version of the Justice League movie. Of course, there's a really big caveat to all of this, which is,
it took 4 hours to get there, right? His movies are big, they're epic. Chris Terrio did the writing on this. He wrote Rise of Skywalker and Batman v Superman. And the thing about both of those movies, and you really notice in Batman v Superman when you watch like the regular cut, which is 2 hours, versus the director's cut, which is 3 hours. Again, just needs their stories need a ton of decompression, and they're just not designed to be movies because movies should be 2 hours, like basically between 90 minutes and 2.5 hours. Like once you're getting outside of that territory, like you should be on an HBO Max doing some kind of a streaming miniseries. Like that's just the reality of it. Now that's not to say that there aren't plenty of great 3+ hour movies. Like as a film fan, like I can think of plenty of them, but if you look at the current landscape of media and like where your stories can be told, it really doesn't make sense for a movie to be much more than 2.5 hours when you could just put it as a miniseries and make it 4 or 5 or 6 hours if you wanted to. So with that element basically kind of accepted, I would say this is a pretty good movie. If you want to invest the 4 hours and you have HBO Max, go check it out. If you are curious to see where the story would have gone, this is a great example of seeing, you know, how studio interference can really change the landscape of what a movie can be. Um, I would say this is the most fun I've had watching a director's cut since I saw the Donner cut of Superman 2. Although that one only, it went from a little over 2 hours to 90 minutes, and this went from 2 hours to 4 hours. So, it is that big time investment. So if you're up for it, I do recommend it. Check it out. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Have a good one.